Omega level mutants come in all shapes and sizes. Many have abilities that would allow them to single-handedly save the world, or if they wanted to, just as easily destroy it. X-Men is the genetic offspring of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, but hails from the alternate reality of Age of Apocalypse Earth 295. Nathaniel Grey, being the product of Mr. Sinister, using the genes of Jean and Scott, is pretty much the epitome of what their perfect, all-powerful son, or just offspring in general, could be like. Nate himself also seems to have a psionic connection to his alternate reality self, and kind of alt-reality brother, Cable, as well. Nathaniel Grey is considered beyond Omega because of the sheer level of power he possesses. Like most others on this list that we're going to talk about in terms of just how powerful they are, he also holds the power to warp reality. But he can also do a lot more than that. Although I think if you can warp reality, that's pretty much just like saying you can really just do anything at all. Kind of like having all the superpowers in one, which is pretty much what X-Man is doing here. Do you have a favorite reality warper, or do you just have like a favorite power that you think is like super OP? Let me know in the comments below. Is there anything that's more powerful than reality warping? I think that's one of the top ones for me. Well, I really love super speed too. You can do a lot with that power if you can think fast enough. I feel like we're always sleeping on Jamie Braddock somewhat on these lists, so I'm very happy to be featuring him here for once. We don't talk about him enough, really. Especially because recently Franklin Richards was also kind of taken out and declassified as a mutant in the comics, although thank goodness he's finally back. Franklin, aka Powerhouse, is often considered to be one of the most powerful mutants around, and is also known for his reality warping powers, though both of these characters actually have the power to reality warp. Like I said, reality warping, it's super powerful. Each power set though that we have here when it comes to reality warping is based in usually a different type of reality warping. Now for Monarch, his powers work on a quantum level. Although there are people who can influence Monarch's powers by manipulating his mind, he also is just pretty powerful as someone who can just make things happen and think things into existence basically based on how his powers work. David Haller is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller. As a child, he was scarred from witnessing a brutal, horrific attack while in Beirut, and this caused him to develop a split personality disorder. Each personality that lives within him, and sometimes even without him, is fully independent and exhibits its own mutant ability, meaning that the access that Legion has appears to be almost limitless when it comes to all the different powers that he can at times possess. It's not really his fault that he has a tendency to take things too far, as the damage he does is often caused by, you know, the fact that he has a neurodivergence. When he is able to demonstrate control over his powers, he can actually be quite helpful when he wants to be, even fighting alongside the X-Men and his father Professor X at times. That is, you know, when he's not busy being kinda evil. But when he loses control, his abilities tend to manifest in unpredictable ways. He once blew up an entire facility after losing control, and he also kinda created AOA, so yeah, he's done some pretty crazy things. Iska is a mutant from Morocco. So many of the mutants from Morocco are so powerful, Iska included. Iska's mutant power makes her pretty much undefeatable, I would say, at least in a fight, and possibly when it comes to destroying the world depending on the stakes here. She can never lose. Yep, that's her mutant ability. However, that also seems to mean if she is on the losing side of a battle, she is forced to flip sides. Whether or not she truly even wants to do that, we don't really know. She has to flip because she has to be on the winning side. Iska, I think, has one of the coolest mutant powers that we've seen in quite a while. It's just so creative, it's so unique, but it's so simple, you know? Like other mutants who were meeting Iska for the first time, I was also obsessed with the idea of her power set. Iska being unable to lose means in theory that she could beat pretty much anyone, or I suppose would have to refuse or like somehow evade fighting them were she to risk losing, which is also an interesting element to her power set that I also don't think really gets explored enough, although it is early on in terms of her character. In the Ten of Swords tournament, the first battle that we saw her in was between her and Betsy Braddock, aka Captain Britain, and Betsy was pretty quickly defeated here. That is how powerful Iska is. She just goes up against you and you're gonna lose. Honestly, poor Betsy too. Strong as she might be, she did not stand a chance and she just literally got shattered into pieces. Apocalypse is still one of the most powerful mutants out there. His Omega level power is that of an evolution, meaning there is pretty much nothing that Apocalypse can't adapt to survive through. Over time he gets more and more powerful as well, so the longer he lives, the more unstoppable, in theory, he and his power set will become. Apocalypse has proven just how much of a threat he can be, and all I can say is I'm glad he's currently on the side of Krakoa, or that he was at least recently before Fall of X, as he makes as powerful of an ally as he does a villain, obviously. Apocalypse not only has his mutant power set, but is also very experienced in magics as well. Fun fact. Also, Apocalypse may have never been formally acknowledged as an Omega level mutant in the comics, but I just feel like we gotta count him because, like, he totally seems Omega level, right? So I'm gonna count him. I'll be the one to decide that he's Omega, but if you disagree, let me know why in the comments. He's also come up against other Omega levels and he's beat those people, so like I said, it's like a power scaling thing. I feel like we can count him safely. No? Well, we never really got to know Miranda's codename or even her full name. She was given her very own mutant class. That is how great her power set is. Beast had to create a whole new classification just for Miranda. She is beyond Omega, literally. She only appears in the worst X-Men Ever limited series, granted, which by the way is a really great read that I'd recommend you check out if you haven't already. Miranda here is shown to have some reality warping powers, but ones that don't adversely affect space, time, and the multiverse, anything in her reality, or the fabric of the continuum, which is pretty rare. Usually when people mess with reality, it messes stuff up beyond that. There's ripple effects, but with Miranda, there doesn't seem to be. Beast decided to give her the new classification, which would sit above Omega, the name of Omicron, just because he thought it was the most ominous sounding letter of the Greek alphabet. So Omicron level is technically what Miranda is. Omicron level. I think my favorite thing is that although in this universe Miranda is considered to be beyond Omega and could have fixed the world in just basically a snap, she understood why the balance of everything kinda had to be maintained and was very chill and content to just kinda hang out instead of use her powers to fix or ruin the world, as so many reality warpers are prone to try and do, intentionally or unintentionally. Franklin Richards has created more than one universe, including a pocket universe that he used to save a bunch of heroes, including his parents, from the villain Onslaught. And you know what they say, if you can create a universe, you can probably also destroy one too. He has resurrected Galactus, granted after discovering that the universe couldn't really continue without the cosmic being, and he is powerful enough to kill Celestials. But despite all this power, Franklin has often been shown as using his power for the good. Still, the amount of power that he has seems so ludicrous that I would argue he still needs to sometimes be held back simply for this reason, because he just has so much power. Maybe that's why we took away his mutant status for a while in the comics, he's just too OP. As Galactus stated at the end of the history of the Marvel Universe, Franklin Richards is the most powerful mutant ever born, which also makes him one of the most unstoppable and one of the most dangerous mutants out there. Mad Jim Jaspers is a mutant that we do not talk enough about on our mutant lists. He's often a character that falls by the wayside because I suppose he is kind of niche. But when it comes to what he's capable of, he definitely deserves our respect. Of course, Mad Jim Jaspers is another reality warping mutant. You know me, I love my reality warpers. They just really are some of the most powerful out there. So many Omega and beyond Omegas tend to be reality warpers, probably for this reason, which is interesting considering as an Omega you are supposed to be the top of your class in whatever your specific powers are. Of course, there are a lot of approaches and methods when it comes to how mutants can warp reality, which is, I suppose, what makes all those Omega and beyond reality warpers out there distinct and different. While Mad Jim Jaspers hasn't been confirmed as necessarily beyond Omega, just based on what we know him to be capable of, it seems likely that he could also be at that tier. An alternate Mad Jim Jaspers, who is believed to have been weaker than the main continuity version that we have, threatened the entire multiverse at one point with his powers, so he's on a pretty high level. He could definitely destroy the Earth. He could probably destroy the multiverse, let's be real. Vulcan is Gabriel Summers, the youngest Summers brother who had a really messed up childhood, slash kind of honestly no childhood, and who happens to be the most powerful of all the Summers family kids. Scott has his optic blasts and Alex has his energy conversion, but Gabriel has what is possibly a limitless amount of energy manipulation and absorption. He can take in tons of raw energy and just hold it. Or he can channel it into something else, which honestly is pretty crazy. Vulcan has been classified many times as Beyond Omega in the comics by various people, including Rachel Summers. And I think his niece herself would know a thing or two about powerful classifications that are off the charts, considering that she is also one of those people. I really wanted to put Vulcan higher up on this list too, because I just feel like there's so many reality warpers. I knew this list was going to be mostly reality warpers, but Vulcan is just so powerful and he does not get enough hype, I don't think. Now, who could be possibly more Omega, more dangerous than Franklin Richards, Mad Jim Jaspers, and Vulcan? Well, how about another mutant who also has the ability to manipulate both energy, technically, and matter on various levels? We are talking about Matthew Malloy. He accidentally killed Emma Frost using his powers after she hit him and he just shouted stop, which ended up deleting her from existence. Wow. Malloy was kind of just written out of existence, but before that he was known for creating the largest power signature on Cerebro ever in the history of Cerebro. In fact, Professor Xavier was forced to put mental blocks on him just to stop him from accidentally wreaking havoc on the world with his limitless power. He was like, I need to do this just to keep the world intact. Matthew's power comes from another dimension, so like Cyclops, which is why it also appeared to be the inexhaustible kind. However, after Xavier's death, his power's mental barriers started to deteriorate because Xavier was gone, causing him to become very dangerous. Any surge of emotion can trigger his abilities. He once threatened to destroy the entire state of South Carolina with a potential energy blast, and his telepathic and telekinetic abilities are off the charts. He's just one of those people, like, he could just think about it accidentally and he could just destroy the world. You know what I mean?
At number 10 is Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega, who's a prime example of an Omega level mutant who strayed down the dark path of villainy. Initially nurtured by Professor Xavier, who hoped for his potential, Quire's journey took a sinister turn. He formed the notorious Omega Gang, a group hell-bent on mercilessly attacking and, in some instances, unaliving non-mutants. What's truly remarkable, or perhaps terrifying, about Kid Omega is his status as not just an Omega level mutant, but a beyond Omega level mutant. His powers transcend the boundaries of mortality, allowing him to persist even beyond physical demise, an ability that he's exploited multiple times. But here's the twist. Quentin Quire's mental instability wasn't solely his own doing. He was a pawn in the grand scheme of Sublime, the true architect behind this nefarious substance that further warped Kid Omega's mind and corrupted his gang members. At number 9 is Mr. M. Mr. M is a name shrouded in enigma who holds a unique place among Omega level mutants who walk the thin line between heroism and villainy. This dude's abilities encompasses an astounding array from the psionic manipulation to telekinesis, telepathy, and the awe-inspiring power of energy manipulation. But his story takes a twist that mirrors the complexity of the mutant world itself. See, Mr. M's descent into darkness was triggered by a chilling prophetic vision, a harbinger of his transformation into a destroyer. You see, he believed that salvation for his cherished mutant town, a place he'd adopted after years of wandering, lay in eradicating all sickness and corruption. His intentions, albeit misguided, were fueled by a deep desire to protect his home. Though he ultimately failed in his quest, Mr. M remains an anomaly, one of the rare mutants who retained their powers after the Cataclysmic M-Day event, leaving us to ponder the intricate interplay between power, purpose, and the blurred lines of heroism and villainy. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing the notification bell. At number 8, we have Shadow King. Shadow King was born from the darkest recesses of human consciousness, and is a complex and formidable Omega-level cosmic entity turned villain. Emil Frank, the mutant vessel for this benevolent entity, who's the mutant in question, possesses the power of telepathy that rivals even Charles Xavier. His psychic dominance extends beyond the ordinary, effortlessly manipulating formidable telepaths like Marvel Girl and Psylocke. But their true menace lies in his ethereal existence, requiring a host body to manifest in the material world. This parasitic attachment grants him extraordinary powers, but also vulnerability, as the demise of his host can disrupt his astral essence for extended periods. periods. The Shadow Man's sinister history includes collaborating with Baron von Strucker to destabilize Britain before the Second World War, aiming to reshape global politics. His awareness of future events, the rise of the X-Men, and Charles Xavier adds a layer of intrigue to his villainous persona. The Shadow King's multi-universal presence and insidious abilities make him a formidable adversary, demonstrating the dark potential of Omega-level mutants when they fall into villainy. At number 7 is Magneto. Max Eisenhardt, also known as Magneto, stands as one of Marvel's most complex characters. See, initially he embodied the quintessential mutant villain, diametrically opposing Charles Xavier's dream of mutant-human coexistence. Magneto, who was a survivor of World War II, witnessed humanity's darkest facets, making peaceful integration unimaginable for him. Instead, he advocated for mutant supremacy in a genetic war, perceiving humans as the adversary. However, Magneto's narrative trajectory defies simple classification. See, he oscillates between adversary and ally, often leading the X-Men himself. His dynamic character extends to his role as a father, overseeing the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which evolved into a morally ambiguous faction. In contemporary storytelling, Magneto leans towards anti-heroism, driven by a fierce commitment to mutant protection. This complex evolution reflects the rich storytelling potential within Omega-level mutants, challenging the traditional hero-villain paradigm in the Marvel Universe. At number 6 is David Richards. Omega-level mutants are the cream de la crop in the mutant world, who usually stand as defenders of both mutants and humanity. But then there's David, a sinister twist in the narrative. He never reached the godlike heights of beings like Mad Jim Jaspers or Hyperion, but make no mistake, he's no ordinary mutant. Sentinels were like playthings for him. He manipulated Blink, teleportation virtuoso, into a macabre dance of suffering with thousands of innocent lives on the line. He's like, okay, imagine Professor X and Magneto and the Phoenix Force rolled into one malevolent entity, and you've got David. Thankfully, David himself never fully harnessed the Phoenix Force, but his penchant for terrorism sent shivers down spines everywhere. At number 5 is Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff, also known as the Scarlet Witch, embodies the complex nature of Omega-level mutants gone awry in the Marvel Universe. Initially aligned with her father Magneto in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, she and her brother Quicksilver transitioned to heroism by joining the Avengers. However, Wanda's tumultuous history is marked by her struggles with mental instability and reality-warping powers. Her pivotal role as the antagonist in the Avengers Disassembled and House of M storylines underscores her capacity for destruction. Notably, she dismantled the Avengers, rewrote reality during M-Day, and committed mass unalivings against Earth's mutant population. These cataclysmic events highlight the pearliest consequence of when an Omega-level mutant's powers are unhinged by personal turmoil. At number 4 is Omega Red. Before you all go yapping in the comments about how this dude's probably a beta-level mutant at best, he was described by Dazzler as an Omega-level mutant at one point, so I'm gonna try to defend him because he's actually really cool. Born Arkady Gregorovich Razovich, I definitely butchered that, I'm so sorry, in the depths of Soviet Russia, his past was veiled in darkness. There are interpretations of his origins where he was a mass unaliver, captured because his town was really small and there wasn't very many victims. But instead of facing justice, Razovich was handed over to the KGB for a sinister experiment, an attempt to create a super soldier akin to Captain America. The result was Omega Red, a mutant wielding superhuman strength, stamina, agility, and reflexes. His body also exudes lethal hormones, aptly named lethal spores, which can swiftly extinguish the lives of ordinary humans. Yet this is just the tip of the iceberg. Implanted within his arms are retractable carbonadium tendrils, formidable weapons capable of ensnaring victims or lashing out like deadly whips. His endurance is staggering, allowing him to battle foes, including Wolverine, for hours without fatigue. At number 3 is Legion. Born from a secret union between Charles Xavier and Gabriel Haller, his early life was marked by tragedy and obscurity. A survivor of a brutal attack, Legion's latent mutant abilities were abruptly awakened, which intertwined his mind with the consciousness of Jamail Cabril, one of the assailants responsible for the attack. The subsequent psychic battle between his fractured psyche raged for years until he fell under the ominous influence of the Shadow King, which we talked about earlier. Under this benevolent puppeteer's control, Legion became an unwitting agent of chaos, committing heinous acts that fueled hatred and division. Eventually, when he briefly regained control, his actions still remained misguided. His attempt to fulfill his father's dream of human-mutant coexistence by assassinating Magneto backfired catastrophically, thrusting the world into an early revelation of mutants and leading to Xavier's tragic demise, thus leading to the entire events of the Age Apocalypse timeline until Bishop managed to rewrite history again by unaliving surviving Legion himself. At number 2 is President X. In this alternate universe, Charles Xavier, who never established Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, decided to become a politician instead. Yup, that's all it took for Xavier to become the polar opposite counterpart to his 616 version, becoming completely wrathful, cruel, and a sadistic tyrant desiring nothing but total control over everyone around him. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, y'all. Though he's never revealed to be a mutant himself, it's speculated that Xavier's telekinetic abilities aided him in tracking down mutants across the nation. A stark contrast to his 616 counterpart, this Xavier exhibited a cruel and authoritarian rule, causing protests, notably from billionaire Anthony Stark. The catalyst for change arrived as Stark formed the Avengers to counter Xavier's regime, but unfortunately, Xavier's response proved devastating as a missile targeted the Avengers' Quinjet, obliterating its occupants. This tragic loss included iconic figures like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and wait a second, he took out Thor with the missile? Okay. With the big players gone, Xavier's oppressive reign expanded further, with all mutants confined to a grim prison in Texas, subjected to a psychological torment and horrific tendencies. And at number 1 is Vulcan, also known as Gabriel Summers, who emerges from the tangled web of mutant abilities as a formidable figure, overshadowing even his renowned brothers Scott and Alex. His tumultuous upbringing, marked by neglect and isolation, set the stage for his unparalleled powers. Unlike Scott's optic blasts or Alex's energy conversion, Gabriel possesses the astounding gift of energy manipulation and absorption, seemingly boundless in its potential. But what sets Vulcan apart is his ability to vicariously absorb vast quantities of raw energy and retain it within himself like a cosmic reservoir. This stored energy can be wielded at his discretion or redirected as needed, making him a walking powerhouse. In the annals of mutant classification, Vulcan has transcended traditional boundaries, earning him the elusive title of Beyond Omega Level from discerning minds like Rachel Summers. The Summers bloodline, it seems, has birthed not one, but 2 extraordinary mutants, with Rachel herself as a testament to the family's unparalleled genetic legacy.
Coming in at number 10 today, it's Monarch. Born into the esteemed Braddock family, James Jamie Braddock Jr. didn't manifest his reality warping abilities until adulthood. His extraordinary powers hinge on the manipulation of quantum strings, granting him dominion over the very fabric of reality. Operating under the moniker Monarch, he wields a range of abilities from teleportation to nightmarish bodily distortions and even the ability to sow utter chaos throughout the cosmos. As his powers elevated, Jamie Braddock evolved into one of Earth's most perilous and erratic mutants. Ultimately though, Monarch met his demise at the hands of his own siblings, Captain Britain and Psylocke, who sought out to safeguard the multiverse from the dangerous power that he wielded. But despite the danger, the 5 on Krakoa successfully resurrected him, and he harnessed his capabilities to ascend as the ruler of Avalon, solidifying his status as a true monarch within the realm of Otherworld.
If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing the notification bell. Adam and I really appreciate it. At number 9 is Vulcan. Vulcan, also known as Gabriel Summers, emerges from the tangled web of mutant abilities as a formidable figure overshadowing even his renowned brothers, Scott and Alex. His tumultuous upbringing, marked by neglect and isolation, set the stage for his unparalleled powers. Unlike Scott's optic blast or Alex's energy conversion, Gabriel possesses the astounding gift of energy manipulation and absorption, seemingly boundless in its potential. Now, what sets Vulcan apart is his ability to voraciously absorb vast quantities of raw energy and retain it within himself like a cosmic battery. This stored energy can be wielded at his discretion or redirected as needed, making him a walking powerhouse. In the annals of mutant classification, Vulcan has transcended traditional boundaries, earning the elusive title of Beyond Mutant Level from discerning minds like Rachel Summers. The Summers bloodline, it seems, has birthed not one, but 2 extraordinary mutants, with Rachel herself as a testament to the family's unparalleled genetic legacy.
Number 8, Mr. M. Mr. M, also known as Absalom Mercator, is one of Marvel Comics' most powerful mutants. His mutant ability grants him control over matter on a molecular level, allowing him to manipulate and reshape materials, elements, and even living organisms with a mere thought. But unlike other matter manipulators, he can only manipulate already existing matter. This differentiates him as being a matter manipulator, but not a reality manipulator. Don't think that makes him a pushover though, not by a long shot. He has used his abilities to repair machinery, become intangible, heal injuries of both himself and others, remove or or augment superhuman qualities and even create and evolve lesser life forms. He can also manipulate energy, which has allowed him to generate lightning, fire, explosions, and the ability to create force fields. He basically became a savior figure for a group of mutants before being taken out, but even then he seemed to revive himself by becoming a bunch of butterflies, and he was revealed to be alive still later, charged with protecting the Siege Perilous in a part of Otherworld which he now controls.
At number 7 is Exodus. Bennett du Paris was born in the 12th century, having always felt isolated from his peers, probably because he was about to become one of the most powerful mutants the world will ever see. His journey from a lost crusader in the Palestine to becoming one of Apocalypse's pawns and eventually a zealous follower of Magneto paints a tale of ever-evolving power dynamics. But what sets Exodus apart from the legion of comic book villains is his astounding psychic abilities. He ranks among Earth's most formidable psychics, wielding an arsenal of telekinetic and telepathic powers. Now, while the origin of his additional abilities remains shrouded in mystery, those being teleportation and energy blasts, it's clear that his immense telekinetic and telepathic prowess fuels them somehow. One of his most astonishing feats involved encapsulating all of Genosha within a psionic dome. This dome not only imprisoned heroes and cut off communication from the outside, but he could also manipulate the dome's size, shrinking it to crush entire buildings. But what's even more impressive was the fact that he was able to maintain the dome's integrity while also psionically influencing the island's populace, keeping powerful telepaths like Jean Grey and the rest under his control, while also battling legions of superheroes at the same time. Although this display of absolute power is probably an outlier, it highlights Exodus's sheer power and potential, making him a formidable antagonist lurking far beyond Omega level capabilities.
Number 6, Magneto. Magneto boasts a storied history in the Marvel Universe, largely characterized by his antagonistic role as the foremost rival of Professor Charles Xavier. What makes his perspective particularly intriguing is the juxtaposition of his past as a child of a Jewish family during World War II and his subsequent belief in mutant supremacy over regular humans, even after enduring years of persecution. This worldview has driven him to lead the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and various other factions in opposition to the X-Men and Earth's other heroes. Magneto's reputation as a formidable force precedes him. His unparalleled power and extensive experience position him as an adversary few dare to challenge. Remarkably, to prove his power, there was a moment when he had his heart torn out by the villain Villainous. Yet, he somehow defied death by using his powers to maintain the circulation of his own body. This incident kind of proves the sheer magnitude of his abilities and his enduring legacy in the Marvel Universe.
At number 5 is Proteus. Proteus is the lunatic son of Moria McTaggart, wielding a reality warping power that exceeds the boundaries of comprehension. His ability to manipulate the fabric of existence is a cosmic anomaly, but it comes at a grave cost. See, Proteus is forced to leap from one fragile vessel to another, for his extraordinary energy consumption quickly decays living flesh. But it's a two-sided coin, because as a psychokinetic being, Proteus may be temporarily defeated, but his essence endures, an ethereal psychokinetic specter lurking in the shadows. Operating on the principle of sight and concentration, Proteus reshapes reality itself, albeit momentarily. So, for example, he may transform a building into a swarm of bees, but the moment his focus wavers, say to warp some other aspect of reality, like when he turns Cyclops' laser beams into popcorn, the bees revert back to their original form, the building. Yet make no mistake, this mutant stands atop the Omega level hierarchy. He once vanquished Jean Grey, even while she wielded the formidable Phoenix Force.
Number 4, Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy is a sad character. Coming from Earth 14923, his mutant abilities manifested thanks to an extremely traumatic event involving his wife and some Skrulls, and they quickly went out of his control. He essentially has the ability to tap into an extra-dimensional power source that allows him to warp reality to his will. With that power, he's displayed telekinesis, telepathy, catatonic explosions, matter manipulation, teleportation, and even self-resurrection. As his powers manifested, an eruption of energy followed, destroying everything around him, which only made things worse for him. After that incident, Matthew stood in a massive sinkhole he created when he was then approached by a robotic drone with a holographic image of director Maria Hill, who questioned him if he was responsible for the disaster and if he was a mutant. He was not in a good emotional state and was pretty uncontrollable, and so she sent a strike team to his location only for him to uncontrollably release his power and obliterate everyone in the area again. After this, S.H.I.E.L.D. sent an airstrike that obliterated him and the X-Men, Cyclops, and Magic, but using his powers, he returned back to life and teleported to the Jean Grey school, where he took the life of Emma Frost. It was not until Tempest used her powers to go back in time and, with the help of Professor X of the past, managed to make Malloy's parents never meet, causing him to never have been born in the first place and cease to exist in the present, saving Cyclops, Magic, and Emma Frost.
At number 3 is Mad Jim Jaspers. Sir James Jaspers was the head of the Conservative Party in Britain and ran an anti-superhuman platform. And after winning the election in a landslide, Jaspers served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom before it was revealed that he himself was a mutant, and one with vast reality warping powers at that. Going mad with power, Jaspers came into conflict with Captain Britain and Fury, who managed to defeat him by shunting him off to a completely barren universe in which there was no matter or energy for him to control. But this wasn't really a big deal for Jimmy, because after all of causality is thrown into chaos, he comes back to life. Not only that, but Jasper claims that he's solely responsible for the creation of everything in his universe, including living beings. So to say that this guy is beyond Omega level is an understatement. He's more like a deity than anything else.
And at number 2 today is Strife. Strife's origin is a complex tale involving cloning, Mother Ascani, and the influence of the infamous Apocalypse. He's essentially a clone of Nathan Summers, who's better known as Cable. However, what sets Strife apart is that he represents what Cable might have become if not for the constant battle against the techno-organic virus that plagues him. Unlike Cable, Strife doesn't face this limitation. Much like his counterpart, Strife is classified as an Omega level telekinetic, and he confidently lays claim to that title. In fact, he's considered the third most powerful of his kind on Earth. His telepathic powers rival that of other top-tier telepaths, boasting both potent defensive and offensive telekinetic abilities. To add to his arsenal, he's been cybernetically enhanced by Apocalypse, granting him superhuman physical attributes. Strife is an imposing and relentless villain, a force that should just never be underestimated.
And coming in at number 1 is Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is a marvel of Marvel. She started off as a villain with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but soon switched sides to become one of the Avengers' most iconic members. Her power is all about bending probability and reality. Originally thought to be her mutant power, it's actually innately magical thanks to her lineage and the High Evolutionary's meddling. Alongside her twin brother Quicksilver, Wanda's powers initially manifested as hex bolts, volatile bolts of chaotic energy that altered the very fabric of probability. Initially, Wanda didn't have full control over the power and could accidentally hex objects with hand gestures like a magical Italian. Oh. She eventually gains more control through practice, but her abilities aren't just limited to hex bolts. She's a bona fide witch wielding chaos magic. With training from Agatha Harkness, she can control elements and organic matter. This means that she can manipulate not just probability, but the very fabric of existence. When we talk about villains with beyond Omega level powers, Wanda Maximoff is right up there. Her ability to reshape reality and command chaos makes her a cosmic force to be reckoned with.
Starting us off in at number 10, Monarch. Monarch, aka Jamie Braddock, has quantum reality manipulation abilities. He's the elder sibling of Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke, and Brian Braddock, aka Captain Britain, and he is also schizophrenic. That, unfortunately, is the reason why he ends up on our list, because he believes the reality he is living within is a dream of his own making. And because of that, he may be easily susceptible to manipulation and taken advantage of. Which, also not cool, guys. That's a scary thought when it comes to an Omega level mutant who possesses terrifying power. I mean, he is capable of resurrecting the dead and transforming living beings into completely different forms. Of his abilities, his sister Psylocke once said, I quote, "Power runs deep in our family. He got the full measure, the ability to pull the quantum strings that define casualty. He got himself so tangled he'll never twist free." Yikes. Moving on to number 9, we have Storm. Storm is by no means an evil mutant. She is a tried and tested member of the X-Men and has always fought for the greater good, whether that was protecting innocent mutants or human lives. But now that the X-Men have become more extreme in their methods and have developed a specific society with specific rules on Krakoa, it wouldn't be surprising to see Storm turn into a militant enforcer of Charles Xavier's. And in the past, primarily in alternate universes, Storm has turned evil. She once killed Black Panther and his entire family and took over Wakanda for herself. That
being said, she does seem to be one of the X-Men members who are more so pragmatic and wise, and we believe there would be a minimal chance of the weather manipulator turning a nefarious cheek. Moving on to number 8, Franklin Richards. Okay, so it seems pretty unrealistic that Franklin Richards would turn evil, but in the eyes of the X-Men and those with allegiance to Krakoa, he could very well be perceived as an antagonistic force thanks to his allegiance with the human race. He's currently sticking with his fam at the Fantastic Four, and considering he's so young, there's still a lot of time for him to develop his own opinions. So many see Franklin as a bit of a wild card in terms of the upcoming mutant stories. Cyclops was even trying to sway him, or rather sway his family, into having him join on Krakoa. Now that in itself is a bit of a threat. Franklin has always proven to be one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe, capable of warping reality on a massive scale. He once even created a pocket universe that was an exact replica of the 616. And he did that subconsciously. In other words, he is a wickedly powerful kid. Moving on to number 7, Elixir. Elixir, aka Josh Foley, is an Omega level mutant capable of biological manipulation. Prior to Josh's powers manifesting, he was a member of the anti-mutant group, the Reavers. Whether or not you read that as he might have some internalized mutant phobia issues, he's often found other reasons to be an outsider in the mutant community. As a side effect of having to be electrically shocked awake in order to heal himself, all of his skin and hair transformed into a reflective gold color. He dated a teacher at the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning that briefly ostracized him, and he's been through a handful of traumatic experiences since joining up with the mutant team. Aside from his capability to heal others, he can also pull off the reverse of that. He can manipulate life forces, cause boils and welts to appear, create tumors, and even cause death. Here's hoping that he stays as a good intended mutant. Moving on to number 6, we have Kid Omega. Kid Omega doesn't have the most squeaky clean reputation. He had quite the rebellious streak back in the day when he first joined up with the Xavier Institute, and started up his own gang called the Omega Gang. An incredibly powerful telepath, he is a troublemaker and a little bit of a bully at first. But then it evolves into him forcing his gang to take the mutant drug kick, resulting in them accosting a gang of humans, maiming some and killing others. He also rallies up other students in a riot with him over Xavier's policies at the school. At one point, when he was fed up with people, he decided to exile himself on Krakoa altogether, where he would encounter the Phoenix Force. Now these days, he is loyal to Krakoa now that it is a sovereign nation. But hey, if his past is a sign of anything, we might have something to worry about in the future. And at number 5, Legion. Legion, aka David Haller, is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller. He suffers from dissociative identity disorder, and his mutation is best described as power manifestation. Capable of altering reality and time on a cosmic scale, he is held back due to his multiple personalities. Now each personality manifests a different power, and there are a lot of personalities that he's exhibited over the years. He's got over 1,000 of them and counting. David's allegiance, according to House of X issue 1, is unknown. Last time we saw Legion, things weren't looking too hot for him. He had been transported to a different reality created by X-Man, placed in the Danger Room prison complex in solitary confinement, although he managed to control and alter other prisoners' memories. He was eventually returned to the real world in Age of X-Man Omega issue 1. Needless to say, his stance on the current state of mutant-human relations is ambiguous at best. Up next, number 4, Jean Grey. Remember the Phoenix Saga? Yeah, we do too. While Jean Grey is inherently good, we've seen how absolutely destructive her powers can be when merged with the Phoenix Force. And it's worth mentioning that Jean is the only character to ever force the Phoenix Force against its own cosmic will to do her bidding without her even being its host at the time. Now her control over the Phoenix Force when bonded has varied over the years. Regardless, those facts are all pretty scary if one were to suggest that Jean's capacity for acting in more nefarious fashion was realized, especially if it is under the orders or manipulation of Charles Xavier, since realistically we've already seen him turn to a bit of a darker side. Yeah. Moving on to number 3, Vulcan. Vulcan is a mutant who can manipulate energy on a grand scale. He's also the younger brother of Cyclops and Havoc, although he had a much different upbringing than his brothers. Before he was born, his mother, Catherine Summers, was abducted by the Maestra of the Shi'ar Imperium and killed, and Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, was removed from her body and put into an incubator accelerator. Sent to Earth to be a slave, he would eventually escape. Now in the years that followed, he played both the role of friend and foe to the X-Men. Even before the Dawn of X reboot, Cyclops still believed that Vulcan was a threat. Yet after Krakoa became a sovereign nation, he was confirmed to be back on Earth and loyal to Krakoa. Moving on to number 2, Exodus. Exodus is a mutant who was born in 12th century France, first appearing in Marvel's panels in X-Factor issue 92 in 1993. He possesses a variety of powers, with his most prominent being telekinesis. In addition to that, he is telepathic, immortal, can teleport, has regenerative healing factor, and superhuman physical attributes. He's also traditionally a supervillain, whose high power levels are likely due to tampering from Apocalypse. In the 20th century, Exodus was freed from a crypt Apocalypse had trapped him within for centuries. He was freed by Magneto. who then took him over to the Acolytes. He actually ended up succeeding Magneto as the leader of the Acolytes when Magneto was incapacitated. Now, despite his villainous past, Exodus, along with several other villainous mutants, came to Krakoa, the now independent state of mutants, and was allowed to stay there as long as he adhered to the laws of Krakoa. He is actually a part of the Quiet Council who oversees the mutant nation, alongside Mystique and Mr. Sinister in the winter chapter of the Council. And finally, in at number 1, Magneto. Magneto is the most obvious answer for the number 1 spot on our list. Why? Well, because for years he was the penultimate X-Men villain. Although, to call him evil is a little questionable. He's always been a villain with a point, with his main goal being to protect the mutant race. Although he kinda does it in a pretty bad way. This is where it gets a little morally gray. Magneto regards mutants as the evolutionary superior to human beings. He does not believe that a peaceful mutant-human coexistence is possible. Initially, he wanted to conquer the world to allow mutants to replace humans as the dominant species. So you can see why he bumped ideologies with Charles Xavier in the past. But now that the two have teamed up and are presiding over Krakoa as part of the Quiet Council, Magneto's influence over Xavier's recent revelation that he and the X-Men have exhausted all other options in seeking equality for mutants could lead to catastrophic consequences, not just for mutant kind but for the rest of the Marvel universe. We've already seen some tension grow. And case in point, when Magneto, acting as the Krakoan ambassador, spoke with other ambassadors from across the globe, made the point of stating that, while he was not threatening them in any way, they needed to acknowledge that they, I quote, have new gods now.
Number 10, Moira X. We don't really know that much about Moira X in her mutant role yet, and she did just become human, sadly, in the comics. However, what we do know is that her resurrection powers that she had seem to be unparalleled because they imply that she has complete sort of multiversal control built into them. Or at least universal control. That is to say, it is heavily implied in Inferno that if Moira were to die in one of her lives, the universe she was a part of would possibly cease to exist. This prompts Mystique to defeat her by turning her human, then intending to kill her thereafter, now that she is no longer a threat. But of course, Mystique is unable to follow through due to the interference of other mutants on Krakoa, namely Cypher and the sentient mutant island of Krakoa itself. We haven't classified Moira X's power level yet as a mutant, but if she returns to being a mutant, and I kinda really hope she does because I really liked everything that we did with her as a mutant, I wouldn't be surprised if she was considered to be beyond Omega level just because of how intrinsically connected her powers are to the fabric of reality itself. It's quite unique and it's also quite powerful. Also, that's kind of why I want to see a return. I just feel like it was such a cool idea. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists where we talk about some super amazing powerful mutants, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I don't know if we have 10 more beyond Omegas, but maybe we could. Alternate realities. Number 9, Professor X. Professor X is typically classified as an alpha level mutant, so I'm sure you're wondering what made me so boldly include him here. So bold! 2 levels above where his Marvel fandom page has him classified as. I have some things that I disagree with though with that Marvel fandom page, to be honest. And honestly, I put him on this list because of some recent developments that I think were really cool and blew my mind. You can let me know if your mind was also blown by these or not. During the 2021 Inferno story, we saw Xavier and Magneto go up against Omega Sentinel and Nimrod after they were caught in a trap laid for them both by Mystique and Destiny. The two traditionally villainous ladies ended up kidnapping Moira, and while attempting to track her, believing her to have been taken by Orchis, instead, Magneto and Charles ended up fighting against that organization, or more specifically, their Sentinel creations. They ended up fighting more against those because Orchis was quickly, all the humans were gone. During this fight, Charles defeated, or at least very nearly defeated, Nimrod at one point by using his telepathy to, in essence, break them apart. And while this is crazy, what's even cooler is it was hinted that Xavier was capable of this level of psionic assault in the past, when the X-Men actually first fought against the Sentinels back in the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby days, when he concentrated intensely and he actually managed to use his power to temporarily kind of like put the Sentinels to sleep. To me, this was an amazing feat, and it was kind of a cool callback to that original fight against the Sentinels, and one that made me consider Xavier's potential for being an Omega level or even beyond Omega level mutant. I know there's gonna be some people that are gonna be like, hey, no, that was telekinesis, Amanda, and that's what's going on. But I don't think that Xavier actually has telekinesis. I know people say, no, Cassandra Nova, that genetic connection. I'm sorry, but I can't accept it. But if you accept it, that's fine. I just can't. So that's why I'm referring to it as telepathy, just so you know. I acknowledge that it is apparently a thing. Number 8. New Sun. New Sun is an alternate version of Gambit who actually first appeared in one of the Gambit series and is initially a more mysterious figure. He is what Gambit would have been like had he been created purely to be studied and utilized by the government. New Sun ended up escaping the Alpha 1 facility where he was raised and held though. This version of Gambit hails from the alternate reality of Earth 9921. Unlike Gambit, he does not have restrictions or mental blocks when it comes to his capabilities. He can also turn himself into energy and charge objects with kinetic energy without even needing to touch them. New Sun basically shows the potential that Gambit has for his power. However, in the 616 reality, there is an element of fear that Gambit harbors when it comes to his own powers and abilities that New Sun doesn't seem to possess. Which is what makes him so dangerous, but also what puts him way ahead of Gambit's mutant power levels. I wouldn't be surprised if New Sun was classified to hear that he had the potential to be beyond Omega. I've also just been a really big fan of the fact that like Gambit could be crazy powerful, he just like kind of chooses not to. I think that's cool. Number 7. Matthew Malloy. Matthew Malloy was said to be basically one of the strongest mutants in the entire world, in the entire multiverse even, or at least in his entire world, in his entire universe. Matthew Malloy hails from the reality of 14923, where his power was so great that he caused massive natural disasters by accident, just from feeling intense emotions. He had to be really careful with his powers in order to attempt to avoid such things from happening. But he wasn't very good at being very careful. Matthew Malloy's power set was reality warping based, but his power was so great that he ended up as more of a danger than an asset to the world and to other mutants. As a result, he was defeated by Tempest with some help from Professor Xavier. She defeated Matthew by going back in time to make sure his parents basically never met each other, so he could never be born. With him no longer existing, reality was changed and the one he had lived in blipped out of existence. Bye. Number 6. Marquis of Death. The Marquis of Death is a mutant who is well known for his ability to destroy. He could travel to alternate universes, traversing the multiverse, and was capable of destroying whole worlds within seconds, just with a thought. The Marquis of Death was not from the main continuity of Earth 616, but the alternate Earth of 807128, although there are other alternate versions of him in other universes besides. He's not the only one. This version of Clyde Wincham Jr. became obsessed with death after coming under attack by multiple villains and killing them in an instant with a single thought. He would end up being seemingly killed himself by Dr. Doom in the end, who worked with the Marquis under the guise of being his apprentice. That's the only reason why I ranked him so low. I know Doom is awesome, but I was just like, wow, defeated by Doom. That's how it goes sometimes, I guess. Number 5. Franklin Richards. Or at the very least, an alternate Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards of Earth 616 was recently stripped of his mutant status. No more mutant for him. And while I'm not convinced this will end up staying a permanent change to his character, I don't think it's been undone yet, as far as I know. I'm not up to date on my Fantastic Four though, so if I'm wrong, let me know, because I want Franklin to become a mutant again anyways. It turns out that Franklin had been using his power to alter his genetics to appear as a mutant. This was not intentional, but apparently was subconsciously done, and when his power started to go all wonky, eventually his unintentional genetic manipulation came to an end, which ended up with him being rejected from Krakoa, no longer able to visit there, because they basically found out you were never really a mutant, so bye. A future Franklin Richards of Earth 10774, however, seemed to have remained a mutant, either permanently one in this alt future, or simply not exposing that he had unintentionally faked his mutant genes. Not really sure which. It was the Mad Celestials in this future that identified him as beyond Omega level. Number 4. Miranda. While we never really got to know Miranda's codename or even really her full name, she was given her very own mutant class. That is how great her power was. Beast had to create a whole new classification just for her. She only appears in the Worst X-Men Ever limited series, which by the way is a really great read that I'd recommend you check out if you haven't already done so. Miranda here is shown to have reality warping powers, but ones that don't adversely affect space, time, the multiverse, anything in her reality, or the fabric of the continuum. Beast decided to give the new classification, which would sit above Omega, the name of Omicron, just because he thought it was the most ominous sounding letter of the Greek alphabet, which I gotta say, I love Hank's reasoning for that. So great. Classic Hank. I think my favorite thing is that although in this universe Miranda was beyond Omega level and could have fixed the world in like a snap, just with a thought, just with a pop. That's how her powers work. She does a thing and it's like pop. She understood why the balance of everything kinda had to be maintained, and was very chill and content to just basically hang out instead of use her powers to fix or ruin the world, as so many reality warpers are prone to try and do, intentionally or unintentionally. And this is also a person that literally wouldn't ruin it, or like nothing bad would happen if she did it. Which is pretty cool. Number 3, X-Man. X-Man is the genetic offspring of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, but hails from the alternate reality of Age of Apocalypse, Earth 295. Nathaniel Grey, being the product of Mr. Sinister, using the genes of Jean and Scott, is pretty much the epitome of what their perfect, all-powerful son could be like. Nate himself also seems to have a psionic connection to his alternate reality self, and kind of alternate reality brother, Cable, as well. At least I like to think of them as like alternate reality brothers. Nathaniel Grey is considered beyond Omega because of just the sheer level of power that he possesses. Like most others on this list we considered to be beyond Omega, he also holds the power to warp reality, but he can also do a lot more than that. Although I think if you can warp reality, that's pretty much just like saying you can really do like anything at all. Kind of like having all the superpowers in one superpower. So I won't even go into everything he can do, because basically if you're like, can he do that? Yes, he can do that. He can do everything. Number 2, Mad Jim Jaspers. Mad Jim Jaspers is a mutant that we don't talk about very often on our mutant list. He's often a character that falls by the wayside because I suppose he's kinda niche. He hasn't been in like a ton of comics, but when it comes to what he's capable of, he definitely deserves our respect and deserves a spot on this list, I think. Of course, Mad Jim Jaspers is another reality warping mutant. So many Omega and beyond Omegas tend to be reality warpers, to be honest, which is interesting considering as an Omega even, you're supposed to be the top of the class in whatever your specific powers are. Of course, there are a lot of approaches and methods when it comes to how mutants can reality warp, which is, I suppose, what makes all those Omega and beyond reality warpers out there distinct and different. That's how we can have so many of them. While Mad Jim Jaspers hasn't been confirmed as beyond Omega level just based on what we know of him to be capable of, it seems super likely that he would be at that tier, were he to be categorized, were he to be given a classification and a level. An alternate Mad Jim Jaspers, who is believed to actually have been weaker than the main continuity version of this character, threatened the entire multiverse at one point with his power, so that just gives you an idea of what Mad Jim Jaspers could be capable of. Also, he should probably be in some more comics, I feel like. He's always a fun character too when he shows up in my mind. Number 1, Vulcan. Vulcan is Gabriel Summers, the youngest Summers brother who has had a really messed up childhood, slash kind of no childhood, complicated, and who happens to be the most powerful of all the Summers family kids. Scott has his optic blasts and Alex has his energy conversion, but Gabriel has what is possibly a limitless amount of energy manipulation and absorption. He can take in tons of raw energy and just hold it or channel it into something else, which is pretty crazy. Vulcan has been classified many times as beyond Omega level in the comics by various people, including Rachel Summers, and I think his niece herself would know a thing or two about power classifications that are off the charts, considering she is also an insanely powerful mutant in her own right. And she was also on my long list for even making it on this list, because I think she's beyond Omega too.
You think the X-Men's powerhouses are all about flashy energy blasts and telekinesis? You're missing the real Omega level threats hiding in plain sight. Jonathan Jono Starsmore, better known as Chamber, commands a truly formidable power set, marking him as a potential powerhouse within the Marvel Universe. His innate ability to generate and project potent biokinetic energy blasts from the gaping void in his chest positions him as a living, breathing energy cannon. However, the sheer destructive force of these blasts, coupled with the significant physical strain they impose, has historically hampered his potential. Picture, though, a scenario where Chamber achieves complete mastery over his volatile energy. Such control would transform him into a singular force of destruction and defense, capable of leveling entire urban landscapes or withstanding the most devastating of assaults. Envision him confronting a Sentinel army. With Omega-level precision, he could unleash a relentless torrent of energy, obliterating entire formations with effortless ease. Furthermore, the possibility exists for him to not merely project, but also absorb energy, potentially siphoning power from the Sentinels themselves. This absorption could catalyze a dramatic evolution of his abilities, transcending simple energy blasts to encompass intricate energy manipulation or even complete energy absorption, propelling him to a level of power that could reshape the very landscape of mutant abilities. Jean-Paul Beaubier, the dazzling North Star, secures the 9th position with his impressive array of superhuman speed-based abilities. His capacity for rapid movement and flight, with the potential to approach light speed, coupled with his extraordinary stamina, endurance, and reflexes, already renders him a significant asset. However, the true potential of North Star lies in the hypothetical expansion of his powers beyond their current limits. Imagine him transcending mere velocity to manipulate the very fabric of time, phasing effortlessly through solid matter, or even transforming into a living conduit of pure energy. The sheer breadth of possibilities is staggering. Comparisons inevitably arise with other speedsters within the Marvel pantheon, particularly Quicksilver. Could North Star, with the attainment of Omega level speed, surpass even the latter's renowned velocity? Picture him as a near imperceptible blur, an entity moving so swiftly as to become effectively untouchable and unstoppable, a force capable of rewriting the rules of engagement simply by existing within the temporal space of a conflict. Such an evolution would not only elevate North Star to unprecedented heights, but also redefine the very concept of speed within the Marvel Universe. Clarice Ferguson, the enigmatic Blink, secures the 8th position with her extraordinary teleportation abilities, a power that fundamentally alters the dynamics of space and combat. Her capacity to generate portals, facilitating instantaneous travel for herself and others across vast distances, is already a significant tactical advantage. However, her offensive application of these portals, allowing her to displace objects or even selectively remove portions of them, adds another layer of formidable power. Furthermore, her ability to create teleporting javelins capable of instantly relocating anything they touch elevates her to a truly unique and potent combatant. While Blink's current abilities are invaluable to any team, the potential for her powers to reach Omega level status is truly staggering. Imagine her possessing the ability to teleport anything, anywhere, at any time, without limitation. She would become the ultimate infiltrator, capable of bypassing any security measure, the ultimate rescuer, able to extract individuals from any perilous situation, and the ultimate disruptor, capable of manipulating entire battlefields with the precise placement of her portals. Consider the strategic ramifications. She could effortlessly rescue civilians from collapsing structures, divert explosive devices before detonation, or dismantle enemy formations by strategically relocating soldiers to inhospitable environments. This level of control would transform Blink into a master manipulator of space, rendering her an indispensable asset and a force to be reckoned with. Stepping into our number 7 spot is Dani Moonstar, aka Mirage. This new mutant can psionically create illusions based on the fears and desires of others. She's a master manipulator, capable of turning an enemy's own mind against them. But what if Mirage could take her powers to the next level? Imagine if she could create illusions so real they could cause physical harm, or even manipulate reality itself. She could become a psychic powerhouse, capable of bending the world to her will. And don't forget about her other abilities. Mirage is also a skilled leader and has even tapped into Valkyrie powers in times of need. With Omega level potential, she could become a psychic warrior, leading armies and shaping reality with her mind. Blazing into our number 6 spot is Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot. This Brazilian powerhouse can absorb solar energy and convert it into superhuman strength, flight, and even concussive blasts. He's like a walking solar battery. Now, Sunspot's already a force to be reckoned with, but imagine if he could absorb other forms of energy. He could become a walking energy sponge, capable of draining the power from his enemies, or even feeding off the energy of entire stars. He could fly through supernovas, absorb the energy of black holes, and become a cosmic powerhouse. Magnetizing our number 5 spot is Lorna Dane, aka Polaris. As the daughter of Magneto, she inherited his incredible power over magnetism. She can manipulate magnetic fields, create force fields, and even fly. While already a powerful mutant in her own right, imagine if Polaris could tap into the full potential of her abilities. She could control the Earth's magnetic field, manipulate metal on a global scale, or even disrupt technology with a thought. She could become a true mistress of magnetism, and with her connection to the Earth's EM field, she could potentially amplify her powers to an Omega level, becoming a living embodiment of the planet's magnetic force. Deciphering our number 4 spot is Douglas Ramsey, aka Cypher. This mutant has the incredible ability to understand any spoken or written language, human or alien. He's basically a universal translator. Now, while Cypher's power might seem passive at first, imagine if he could use his language skills to manipulate technology, reprogram machines, or even communicate with and control sentient computer systems. He could become the ultimate hacker, capable of infiltrating any system and bending it to his will. He could rewrite computer code with a thought, shut down entire power grids, or even communicate with alien civilizations. Forging his way into our number 3 spot is the brilliant inventor Forge. This mutant has an intuitive talent for inventing any kind of mechanical device. He can create anything from weapons to vehicles to even time travel devices. Now, Forge is already a valuable asset to any team, but imagine if he could push his powers to the next level. He could create technology that defies the laws of physics, build machines that manipulate reality, or even design weapons capable of taking down the most powerful beings in the universe. He could become the ultimate weaponsmith, outfitting mutant kind with technology that could rival even the Celestials. Swirling into our number 2 spot is Soraya Kadir, aka Dust. This Afghan mutant can transform her body into a cloud of sand, granting her flight, intangibility, and even the ability to suffocate her enemies. While already a formidable opponent, imagine if Dust could control sand on a massive scale. She could create sandstorms that engulf entire cities, manipulate the very ground beneath her enemies' feet, or even solidify sand into weapons or structures. She could become a true force of nature. With Omega level control over sand, she could reshape deserts, create oases, and even manipulate the Earth's tectonic plates. And finally, crawling into our number 1 spot is Japheth, aka Maggot. This mutant has a unique digestive system that manifests as 2 slugs that can consume any material and grant him superhuman strength and size. Now, while Maggot's powers might seem a bit gross at first, imagine if he could control those slugs and their digestive abilities. He could consume anything, from energy to matter to even abstract concepts like time or space. He could become the ultimate recycler, capable of breaking down and rebuilding anything in existence. He could devour entire planets, absorb the energy of stars, and even rewrite the fabric of reality. And that's just a taste of the untapped potential within the X-Men. If you're hungry for more Marvel power rankings, be sure to check out my previous video, Top 10 Powerful Marvel Villains That Deserve Their Own Movie. Click on the video to dive deeper into the world of Marvel's most formidable characters.